Not the Footy Show.
Michael Beattie, the St George captain, brings the Dragons out now. They've won 8 of their last 9. And this is the team most fancied to play Brisbane in the grand final. Tremendous performance in 1992 under the coaching of Brian Smith. Veteran of many St George battles, Michael Beattie. Let's have a look at the full list now for you. The St George side. Ivan Henjak there. Joined up with St George again from Western Suburbs this year. Scott Goulet won his green and gold jumper against Papua New Guinea last year. And now Illawarra comes out for their biggest occasion in Rugby League, their first semi-final. Some people say that it can't be done, but a Cinderella story could easily unfold in 1992. Both the Steelers and the Knights are there, proud to be there and entitled. Let's have a look at that Dragons card now. Potter at fullback, Walford and Heron the wings, Coyne and Beattie the centres. Then it's Peter Coyne at 5'8" and Ivan Henjak at half. Mackay, Goulet, Barnhill, McVean, Priddle and Collins make up the forwards. Bill Dunn just adjusting the headgear as we look at their side. Riolo at the back, Wishart, McIndoe the wings, Rodwell, McGregor, formidable in the centres, Simon Neal the halves, then Cross, Pinchinelli, Dunn, Teachell, Waddell and Skiffaletti. Referee for the match is Graham Annesley, with Illawarra in the red jumpers, running from right to left. Kick-off time to the semi-finals. John Simon, who had a taste of Origin football at this stadium this year, kicks off. Barnhill it is, the first St George player to get a touch of the ball.
G'day everyone, welcome to episode 205 of Not the Footy Show. I'm Warrick Nicolson, and you can see him if you're on YouTube. He is looking resplendent this evening. Mr. Robb Cox, welcome.
G'day mate, how are you going?
I'm very, very well. In isolation,
That's
mate.
good.
Staying as far away from you as possible.
Yep,
and it's working a treat.
Me as well. I'm staying away from you for however long I can.
Although, looking into the background of where you are, it does look like you're at the Arctic Circle or something like that. There is just snow-capped mountains behind you. It's very, very bright.
No, this is my office actually, mate. Believe it or not, and it's not and the walls aren't actually white; they're baby blue.
Oh, look at this. He's pulling out all the stops today, people, because not only are we bringing you a very special start to a series here on The Footy Show, which is we call it the best list, the best of basically rugby league teams, players, idiosyncrasies since 1982. We're also debuting a brand new sound system that Cocksmith has picked up, especially for Not the Footy Show. I know that's the only reason he got it. And mate, you are on the tools, they say, mate. You are pressing buttons. That's what your job now has become.
Yeah, like a DJ, mate. Just mixing away.
DJ Cocksmith,
you know, cutting beats, dropping all sorts of stuff in here, mate. It's good.
Yeah, very, very good. Okay, so what we're going to do, we've had a little bit of a conversation today, and we've realised in the current environment where there is no rugby league, we're going to try and fill a little bit of your day with 20 to 30 minute podcasts that look back at some of the great teams that have been around, and we're going to form teams as a result. So to kick off the episode 205 tonight, we are going to look at the St George Dragons, the Illawarra Steelers, and then a combined St George Illawarra Dragons team, because Cocksmith didn't want to follow instructions, to end up with the best group of players that have played for all three franchises or teams that are part of the single franchise, I guess now, up until basically this season. So 82, which is the start of the Winfield Cup, that's going to be our starting point, and all the way through to now. The reason we're picking that date is that, not that I remember 82, but I was alive back then. We probably don't really remember till probably 84, 85 is probably the more realistic option, but we're going to go from 82 onwards and pay deference to the players that deserve to be in what are effectively top 13s. So in each position, And when we get to a stalemate, obviously we'll end up with some bench players. But that's the idea. We're going to do our best to try and keep these relatively short, although Cocksmith has chosen the 3-in-1, the Holy Trinity Rugby League. The St George Illawarra, I can't even say their name. I like the Illawarra Steelers. I was always a big fan of the Steelers. Everyone knows that I'm a Raiders fan, first and foremost, but the Steelers came in at the same time as the Raiders, and I had always a soft spot. I thought they had not the best jersey, or the best logo, but it was always in the conversation on both fronts, the Steelers stuff. And the Dragons, classic logo, classic jersey, mate. But we're going to talk teams. We're going to start with, I guess, more so the Dragons, then into the Steelers, and then into the combined team. But I did have to get a little check-up on you, mate. Not only have you ended up with a new piece of kit, but what's your week been like, mate? How have you survived without the Rugby League?
The Rugby League. Well, mate, as you know, I've been in isolation. I've been out once since Monday. I had to go to Bunnings and pick up some chlorine. By the way, my pool is resplendent now. Is that a word?
It is a word.
I don't know. It was green. My pool was a pretty nasty shade of green. And I loaded it up with acid, and then
you added the chlorine. Yep.
Add the chlorine, mate. So it's looking great now. That's the only thing I've done all week. Played a bit of guitar. Not worried, just wondered what I'm going to do for a living after all this. As everyone else has been sitting around and counting whatever money they're not getting and all that kind of crap, which is quite morbid. But hey, it's got to be done, mate. What about you? I mean, you tend to go off the radar. I'll give you a call at random times and you're not answering. The word on the street is that you have you've started doing what the Spaniards are doing, and that's not catching COVID-19, but actually having a little afternoon nap.
Oh, mate, afternoon arvo siesta, as I said, I had this afternoon, 2.5 hours. It was glorious. And then I got up, and I'm ready to just get into these Illawarra Dragon Steeler somethings.
Now, before we get into it, though,
yes,
we discussed this on the phone via text message, and it was quite a little bit ambiguous for me because I didn't pick 3 teams. I've picked 1 team, and I didn't pick 13. I've picked 19 because I like an extended bench.
You do.
I'm like Brian Smith or
the Auckland Warriors in '95 when they
just pick 18, 20, 25, whatever. But why don't we work through, your thinking in this? I know that you wanted to name a Steelers team and a Dragons team and have them stand alone on their own from 82 to 98. I argued that point down, and I wanted to do 82 till the end of last year because this year hasn't even really begun yet. Now, we obviously agreed to disagree a little bit on this because what the people are going to get is they're going to get a triple-barreled...
well, I wanted to do individual podcasts of Dragons, Steelers, and then come back and conglomerate into adding all the St George Illawarra players since '99, because 3 times the content equals 3 times the listeners. That's where the mentality was from my end.
We bore them to death, though. Saints are garbage.
Mate, that's the only reason people are listening is because people love the Saints. They love to hate the Saints.
They've won 1 premiership in that 82 to 2019 period.
But it's still 1. It could be none.
It could be, if they were the Warriors or the Titans.
Drop of knowledge, mate. Oh, you didn't even go to Rugby League Project for that, did you? Hey?
Yeah. By the way, to all the loyal listeners out there, before we started rolling on this podcast, look at his eyes. His eyes are going up and down like a poker machine, and he was looking at the Rugby League Project trying to pick his team because he couldn't remember.
I was filling in the gaps. That's the best way I can describe it.
Mm.
So after the break, we will kick off our look at the St George Dragons, the Illawarra Steelers, and then the combined team from 82 to 19. Here on Not the Footy Show, episode 205. Stick around if you'd kind of like.
Not the Footy Show.
5:37:30 for Sydney viewers. There's the siren. The Steelers, on their maiden voyage in semi-final football, have won the day. 18 points to 16. Illawarra defeating St George in front of a crowd of 28,500.
Okay, it's episode 204.
That'd be 205, genius.
Over there, isolating from myself, Warrick, Nicolson. The Illawarra Steelers, buddy, they came into the competition in 1982 with the Canberra Raiders, and they got a bit of a baptism of fire in their first few years. They did happen to make one semi-final series, well, technically two if you count ARL in 97, but they made one real run at the title in 92. And as we pick their best 13, I imagine a lot of the players will come from that team.
Maybe.
No, you're
sorry. I'm talking about my combined team. Yeah, there's a couple, but all right, let's go. Why don't we go through their best 13, mate? Because I'm sure you're going to come up with some names that I do not remember, and you've been longing to say these names for a number of years now.
I have.
And so why don't we just get stuck straight into it?
It. Fullback, mate. Fullback is where we start. And
go.
The friends at Rugby League Project, they've set the website up beautifully, so I can just click a button. All the fullbacks that have ever played for the Steelers are sitting there in a list. It's called preparation, mate. You should learn to appreciate it. Anyway, the player that is most likely to end up as the fullback for the Steelers in their best team since '82 is David Riolo, now a player agent, if I am not mistaken, Cocksmith. Do you remember anything about David Riolo?
Yeah, my wife dated him. I've told you this before. You're bringing up this guy's name. Fair dinkum.
Yes, Riolo.
She dated him when she was in university.
So should we just get rid of you for the next 5 minutes and bring in your lovely wife to talk about David Riolo?
No, don't want to hear about it. Before my time. He was a good player. I remember that. I do remember him being quite small in stature, quite brave. A little bit, maybe on a slightly different level, but a similar stature to Minicello. Not very big, but quite zippy, quite nippy. Yep. Good player.
He was.
Yeah,
so he gets in there. There are other options. People do forget that Luke Patton actually debuted for the Steelers way back when. The other players that were really in contention, John Doherty, who probably the old people will say he should be in there at fullback. I just don't remember enough of him to say categorically he should be there ahead of David Riolo.
I don't think they were his best years, mate. I mean, obviously Wes were his best years. So he'd probably be a little bit out of place in a all-time Steelers jersey.
And there's another player that I remember his footy card, and that's about it. Steve Larder. Does that name ring any bells?
Sorry.
So late 80s, and he played 46 games, kicked 40 goals, 15 tries. I don't remember him, but the other two that people may remember are Brendan Reeves and Brendan O'Meara. But as far as I'm concerned, it is David Riolo's number one jersey to lose. But then we get to, I think, is the golden quartet of Steelers. Okay? Now, we can start in the wing. Who jumps out to you when we think of Steelers wingers?
Oh, well, I think their best winger was Rod Wishart.
Yeah,
I think their best winger was Rod Wishart. Obviously, there was Brian Hetherington as well, and
he was more of a centre.
Alan McIndoe, did he play?
Well, Alan McIndoe is for mine. Him and Wishart are my two selections here. McIndoe had a game where I think he scored 4 or 5 tries in one match. I'll just double check that as we go. But he was a pretty handy winger. He scored 5 tries in a match against the Gold Coast in 1991. He also played for Queensland. He was a pretty handy pickup for them because they got him from the Panthers just after the first premiership, the first grand final the Panthers played in. And McIndoe ended up scoring 64 tries in 124 games. Not bad, but not quite as good as Rocket Rod. 66 tries, 366 goals. And he was
could kick.
What is amazing about Wishart for a lot of just rugby league fans is they don't remember him as a Steeler. They remember him more as a New South Wales winger. He was in that New South Wales team for about 8 straight years. And the Australian team.
Really, really good player. I know his son's coming through at the moment, isn't he?
Kai,
his younger son. I can't remember. I'm not sure, but he's not. I don't think he's a winger though. I think he's a centre 5'8".
Yeah. There is a name on this list before we get to the other contenders that I think he did come up in our conversation today. Paul Carriage played on the wing for the Steelers, mate. He played. He scored 1 try on the wing. He played 12 games. Paul Carriage. Everyone remembers him from that glorious preliminary final in 1998, but I'm sure he'll come up when we get to Parramatta. Any other wingers come to mind?
Can I just say something about Paul Carriage, and we'll go deeper when we do get to Parramatta in a couple of podcasts' time. But that 20 minutes of football that he had in that that semi-final series, grand final qualifier, was the worst minutes of rugby league that I've ever seen an NRL player play. Crap. Absolute crap, Paul. Hang your head, brother.
There's a golden moment where Sterlo forgets that he's commentating as a objective person, and he kicks the ball after the attempted field goal, and you just hear Sterlo go, oh.
Yeah. Sterlo was like he was sitting in the grandstand.
Oh, it's fantastic.
He was pulling his hair out. That's what happened to Sterlo's
It is.
hair.
Look, I don't think there's any other standout contenders for the wing. There's Philly Serra, remember him? No. Keith Beauchamp.
Beauchamp?
Beauchamp.
Don't know.
Jason Moon. Wayne Clifford.
I've heard that. Not the name.
David
Moon, though.
There's a whole bunch of Moons.
Yeah.
Nigel Roy and Jody Rudd actually debuted for the Steelers, but ended up trying to make it more of a fist of it Norths. But there's not really, apart from one other name that I just got to mention, Martin Ebb, the great Ebbs. They need more love from the Steelers. But let's get to the centres, mate. I think it's pretty obvious that the two guys we are looking at are Wishart and McIndoe. We go into the centres, mate, and you mentioned Brian Hetherington before. He actually has the most games for the Steelers in the centres. I was never a huge fan. I only saw the back end of his career. But there's two players.
You know what I remember him from? Sorry to interrupt. I remember him from a Origin game once when he dropped the ball in the in goals, and he was playing on the wing that day because I remember he had a 5 or a 2 on his back. He wasn't playing in the centres when that happened.
That would have been That would have been in '86. Thank you, Rugby League Project. The two players that come to mind for me in the centres for the Steelers, it's Paul McGregor and it's Brett Rodwell. I don't think there's another player that I don't think Hetherington's in that conversation.
There is. Girdler was there.
Girdler only played a few games, mate. How many games do you think? How many games do you think he played in the centres for the Steelers?
30.
No.
How many?
Played 14 games in the centres.
Did he really?
For the Steelers.
I do remember him though, so I must have been watching a bit of football.
He played 2 seasons, mate. He debuted in 91, played 1 game, and 92. Then he played a full year in 92.
Yeah.
Ended up playing 22 matches, but a lot of them on the wing.
Right. Okay.
Most of the games in the centres, but a lot of games on the wing. So I can't put him into that conversation ahead of the likes of Brett Rodwell and McGregor, who both were basically New South Wales and or in the contention. Rodwell was always that sort of 3rd or 4th centre option after McGregor and co.
Given that Girdler played his best football at Penrith rather than at the Steelers. But I will say, in my opinion, Girdler was a better centre than both of those blokes.
Yep. I can't have him ahead of McGregor. I thought McGregor was an outstanding footy player. Actually, John Doherty played a lot of games in the centres for the Steelers. Yep. The other player that is interesting that is on this list is Sean Timmins. Now, he obviously played the most of his career for St George Illawarra, but he played 65 games in the centres for the Steelers.
Yeah.
There's a couple other names I want to throw out here. Max Mannix played for the Steelers in the centres. Yeah. Graham Bradley played a season for the Steelers.
The Penguin.
I did not remember that. In 1987, he played a full year for the Steelers.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And the other name that needs to get mentioned. Are you ready for it?
Go.
Andrew Pauls. Do you remember Andrew Pauls?
I do remember that name, but I wouldn't know him if I fell over him.
He had 7 games for the Steelers. I just like his name. I don't know why. Just Andrew.
Paul. You like a double Christian name, do you?
Mate, it's like Barry John Mather. I just like saying it. Andrew Pauls.
Okay.
It's up there. It's good.
Okay.
Although Terry Westblade's pretty good as well. Anyway, we'll go to the 5/8. So far we have Riolo, Wishart, McGregor, McIndoe. 5/8, I think it's pretty obvious. Who is it?
It's a standout. It's Barrett.
It is Barrett. People sort of might think that he didn't play enough games for the Steelers, but he still played 30-odd games, I think 40 games almost for the Steelers.
He was their best 5/8. He was their best 5/8, even with only 30 games.
He gets in there. Now, the only other player that came to mind, and you mentioned him when we were on the phone before, is Dale Fritz.
Yeah.
He wasn't a bad footy player for a while there.
He was good. He was very much in the mould of Peter Coyne from the Dragons. He was, a very defensive player with a bit of attacking flair, but not nowhere near Barrett's calibre of a football player, mate. So, yeah, Baz could have only played 10 games and he'd still be their best 5'8".
Yeah, it's not too hard. And the halfback, I think, is another standout. I want to give it to Perry Haddock. I want to give it to Glenn Eyre.
You're not going to, though.
But I'm going to give it to a guy called John Simon, who was who I wish had never gone to East. I still reckon that was...
But he went on to make Aussie home loans. So, I mean,
not the same guy, well. Mate. Just to be clear, everyone, not the same fella. John Simon played Origin. He replaced Ricky Stewart when Stewart was injured. He looked like he could have been almost anything, and he went to the East and Parramatta and ended up sort of not ever kicking on as a player. Greg Mackey. I don't remember Greg Mackey. Does Greg Mackey...
Don't. Well, I probably remember his name in a big league program, but I don't. Again, he's another one that I could fall over and not know. And
there's another name that I got to bring up because it was a very short stint with the Steelers. He was an Englishman. Do you remember who? Remember who I'm talking about?
Andy Gregory.
Andy Gregory. He only played 9 first-grade games, I think, plus Panasonic Cup when they made the GF. I think it was in '89. But he is, when I think of the Steelers, he's just one of those players that immediately comes to mind is Andy Gregory, and he played a handful of games for the Steelers. The forward pack,
I kind of always forget him that he played there. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, forward pack's
Where are we going from? We're going from the lock, or are we going straight into the front?
Would you like to go lock?
Yeah, let's go from the back of the scrum, mate.
Okay, I think there's one strong candidate here, and
there's only one.
Ian Russell.
There's only one, but this bloke who you're about to mention also featured very heavily for St George. I know who you're going to say.
See, it's Ian Russell. It's not Brad Mackay. Brad Mackay only played a handful of games for Illawarra, mate.
This guy's off his head, folks. Sorry?
He only played 22 games for the Steelers.
Still the best, mate.
Ian Russell's the best lock forward for the Steelers.
Not a chance. Not a chance. Brad Mackay's your man, and if Brad Mackay, if you're not going to pick him, you've got to pick Bob Lindner, even though Bob only played 3 games. But, both are infinitely better than Mr. Russell. Sorry, Russ.
How many games do you reckon Lindner played for him?
I don't know, probably less than 10. He would have been on top dollar too.
He played 20.
Bob could sniff out a dollar.
His last year in the New South Wales Rugby League, 93, he played. He had a poor old habit, Bobby Lindner. He joined clubs.
What, finding money?
Well, he found money. There's no worry about that. But
he found plenty.
He joined clubs and they'd go on to have like their worst year after a really good year. So he joined Parramatta from the Brisbane competition in '87, just after they won the premiership, to replace Ray Price, and they had a horrible year. Then he joined the Gold Coast in their second year. Yeah, not a good decision. He went to West, and he probably had his most success at West for 3 seasons.
Yes.
Then Illawarra make the prelim final in '92. He goes to Illawarra, and they missed the finals in '93. Poor old Bobby Lindner.
Too bad. He still got paid.
But he was a very, very good player. So I've got Ian Russell. You've gone with Brad Mackay. Second rowers, mate. I think there's 2 standout candidates here. I want to hear yours first.
Well, see, I'm not I'm looking at my big team here. I'm not looking at the minnow team. But look, I would say off the top of my head, Neil Piccinelli.
Absolutely, he's locked in. He's certain second rower. Yep.
Yeah, and the other second rower. Geez, I'm actually drawing a blank. I don't have Rugby League Project in front of me, but
sorry.
No, go on, cheater.
John Cross for mine ends up.
Oh, John Cross, yes.
Being the other second rower.
He went on to Penrith, didn't he?
He did.
But he was still great with Illawarra. Yeah.
He was. It's not really another standout candidate. Mackay played some games in the second row, so you could argue that he could come in. He actually played more games in the second row than he did at lock for the Steelers.
Okay. Yeah.
So he probably comes into more consideration than Michael Carberry, Rod Henniker, Les Morrissey, Paul Upfield.
Look at you. You're dropping names everywhere, mate. Pick them up and put them back in your pocket.
But I'd forgotten that Rod Reddy ended up at the Steelers.
Rocket. Yeah. Rocket could sniff out a dollar too, just quietly.
At the back end of his career. But yeah, and Lindner obviously in the conversation there as well. So that back row is really a Piccinelli and John Cross. What's
Rocket Rod better known for? Being a great St George, St George great, or telling Robbie Farah he was going to play reserve grade?
I actually reckon it's being coach of Adelaide Rams.
Yeah, weren't they achievers?
They should still be in the competition. Anyway, go to the front row, mate.
Yes, one bloke ready to go when you are.
There's one bloke that comes in to this team.
Yep.
And he was a former
Raider. I know
Raider.
who it is.
Darren Fritz.
Big D Fritz, and not Dale.
Not Dale, Darren. He was...
Not related. Are they related?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Damn right, it's a good question. I tried to find the answer this afternoon on the internet, and I couldn't.
But Darren Fritz...
But let's just call them brothers, just for fun.
Darren
and his brother Dale.
He, again, should have stuck at Illawarra. He ended up taking the money at Norths and didn't really do a whole lot. He played only played 3 seasons at Illawarra, but they were pretty strong seasons, I thought, and he's one pick. Now, the other front rower, can you think of a front rower? I mean, there's a couple of worthy considerations, and I'll chuck them out there. Bill Dunn, probably the most famous number 40 that I can ever think of in rugby league. He was never actually starting. He was always wearing... Don't remember Bill Dunn? You call yourself an expert. Cavill Hugh. Peter Johnson.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Peter Johnson.
Cavill Hugh. Cavill Hugh.
Steve Waddell.
Almost like Cavill Avenue. Remember
Craig
that joke from a
Tietzel.
couple of weeks ago?
Hart. Brett
Andrew
Goldspink.
Hart. And Andrew Hart actually went on and played with Souths and St George.
Scott Cram. Not Scott Cam, not the bloke that's on the block.
Not the carpenter, yeah.
That's one. And the other one I've got to put in there, there's 2 Walsh brothers. There's Craig and David. But the guy that I think I pick as the other front rower is Craig Smith.
Yep. Craig Smith, international. Also famously, allegedly knocked out Anthony Mundine at a training session one day.
And I am remiss if I don't mention one more player. He only played 10 games for him, but Martin Masala, the Tongan torpedo.
Marty Masala. There's a name.
Anthony
I
Bonus.
like Marty Masala.
Anthony Bonus, that's one more. Now, hooker.
How old is Martin Masala? Jeez, I still remember him playing only a few years ago.
No, he was done by late 90s, I thought.
There's another Masala then, isn't there?
His last season in the NRL, New South Wales Rugby League ARL was 996. And
Well, who's the other Masala that played for West Tigers? There's another Masala. No, there is.
No, Martin Masala.
Yeah, but isn't there another Masala that played for West Tigers a couple of years ago?
Tongan torpedo.
Are you
mate.
sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then hooker.
John Fafita. Sorry.
Hooker.
That's St George.
Now, Michael Bolt has the most games for the Steelers in total. But
can't take him, mate.
He's not him.
You've got to take the Italian.
No, the Italian stallion, Dean Skifoletti.
Yeah, the Italian twins, Skifoletti in 9 and Piccinelli in 11. Yeah.
So that gives
Wonderful
you a team
duo.
that was a pretty handy rugby league side as you put it on the park. Dave Riolo, Rod Wishart, Brett Rodwell, Paul McGregor, Alan McIndoe, Trent Barrett, John Simon, Craig Smith, Dean Skifoletti, Darren Fritz, Neil Pinchinelli, John Cross / Brad Mackay. I'll give you Mackay. And Ian Russell. I can't give up Ian Russell, though. Ian Russell.
Look, there is a name. There's another name. There's another name in there that we didn't mention. And we've got to give a couple of honourable mentions. You know, Craig Fitzgibbon, I mean, I know he didn't play many games.
I looked it up before we came on air. He didn't play enough. He just didn't play enough.
He debuted with them, though. So you've got to take your hat off. I'll tell you what, the Illawarra has produced a lot of fine players, mate. Whether they played for Illawarra Steelers or not is neither here nor there to a degree. But, you know, Steve Roach came from the area. Bob Fulton came from the area.
Well, there's a lot of players that we'll get to as we go into the St George Illawarra group that could have been great Steelers. And they were at the right age where if Illawarra had stuck around for a while, they would have been the sort of core of that team. So that's a pretty good Illawarra Steelers team, mate. But we've got to get to your boys.
Well, did you go through them? You've already said them all?
I've said them all.
We didn't name a bench, did we?
I think we'll.
We don't need it.
We'll do the bench when we do the combined teams.
Not the Footy show.
There's the team for St George. Potter Walford, Coyne Bradley, Heron Smith, Goldthorpe, Brittle, Collins, Stevens, Barnhill, Goulet, Mackay. Brian Smith, the coach, has done a great job.
Yeah.
St George Dragons, mate. How many grand finals did you make from 82 to 94?
82 to 94. Geez, there was 3, I believe. There was 85. Or was it 84?
You made 4. You made 4.
Oh, did we? Okay, so there was 85, 92, and... No, sorry, 93 and 93 and 94.
No, 92, 93.
92, 93. And 2010.
96.
Was there another? 96.
So St.
Who was it
George-
against?
St. George, Manly. St. George Dragons made 4 grand finals between 82 and 99, or 98. Then they made
Not
the
bad.
99 grand final as St. George Illawarra, and then obviously 2010. But you
Not
came
bad.
up with goose eggs in that in those 4 grand finals, but you produced a pretty handy group of rugby league players, mate.
Yeah.
Who comes in at fullback for you in the Dragons team from 82 to 98?
Look, there were a few. You know, there were a few that were, lurking around there. But I really can't go past Mick Potter.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think Mick Potter was, one of the best. I mean, look, he had 2 phases to his career, didn't he? I mean, I think he debuted with the Bulldogs and played very well with them.
He did.
And then went on to be a Dragons stalwart and favourite son. So yeah, for mine, it's got to be Mick Potter. When did Patton debut?
Patton was late 90s.
Okay.
And he debuted with Illawarra, as I mentioned
Illawarra.
before, and then he went to St. George Illawarra.
Saints.
So not
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
games. Interestingly, Brian Johnson, I'm pulling up the stats now. He played a lot of games at fullback for
He did.
St. George.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
he was another one that I thought of, but I still think Mick Potter played in those big games. I mean, admittedly, they didn't get the dub for those, but he played in the big games, and he was as safe as a bank and a pretty darn good attacker as well. And I loved it when they all started wearing the torpedoes. My favourite era of St.
That was
George.
fantastic, wasn't it? We'll get to the king of the torpedoes in a second. 2 other players that deserve some mention is Rod Mabon, who they picked up from Souths.
Yep.
And also Dean Raper was there in the 96 team that made the grand final. But Michael Potter is clearly the number 1 option for number 1. Wingers, buddy, we will get to the great one in a second.
Yeah, I know who you want to talk about. You mentioned his name once on a text message this week, and you were lamenting that if we name an all-star team, that we wouldn't get. He won't get in, and you're correct. He won't get in.
He won't get a mention. But I start with 2 players that I think are going to be hard to beat. Ricky Walford, who was a joy to watch play rugby league, played for a few other teams. Actually, people forget he wasn't just a Dragon, and Slippery Morris. Now, I never saw the best of Slippery Morris. You may have seen a bit more of him at his best than I did, but they're the 2 that stand out as far as I'm concerned for wingers.
Yeah, the father of the twins, Josh and Brett, was started as a halfback actually. Played halfback for a couple of years and then got jammed out on the wing. I don't know too many other players that's happened to be honest. I mean, who starts at halfback as a playmaker and then ends up on the wing? Someone that failed at halfback, I'd suggest.
I would argue very strongly that's right.
Because he wasn't very big either. Look, the Morris twins are quite big. You know, I mean, they're 6'2", 6'1", 6'2", borderline 100 kilos. Steve was the antithesis of that. He was, 5'9" and probably 80 kilos ring and wet.
Yeah.
On a wet Jubilee oval. But look, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with your era, your 82 to 98 era, in having Slippery and Ricky Walford as the wingers. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, Ricky just a little bit underappreciated. He scored a lot of points there for a while.
Goal kicker.
Yeah,
He was a toe
and
poker.
toe poker. I mean, if you're scoring points as a toe poker, full credit to you.
Well, Mal Meninga did the same, mate. Big time toe poker. Loves a toe poke.
Gary Belcher, everyone forgets, was a kicker and he toe poked. A couple of players that I want to throw out there as honourable mentions. He only played a few years for him, but Mark Bell had an impact at the Dragons.
Yep. He played for the Raiders as well.
And he got them to the grand final in 1996. Adrian Bronker, the Brunk, who was a big money signing from the Gold Coast Seagulls.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't waste money that. Nathan Blacklock actually played quite a bit of football for the Dragons.
Tinger.
Now I can't get him
Tinger
into this group of teams because I think the other 2 players are clearly better than him. But he ended up playing two seasons and 1 full season in '98.
Did he?
St. George.
Okay.
And he scored 19 tries on the wing in 20 games.
Yeah, well, could score a try. I mean, in broken play, he was one of the best. Tinger, and good fella too, actually. Really nice bloke. So,
One more player we have to bring up, buddy.
Go on.
the great Chook, Ian Heron. You know, you look at this era.
I went to primary school with Ian.
What can you tell us about Ian? I know it may have come up on the podcast before. Ian Heron, what can you tell me? Was he the manufacturer of the torpedo pants as well? Was that in the family?
No. The torpedo pants, you know where they came from. They're an NFL thing. I don't know who it was. Probably Brian Smith.
I would have said.
Brian Smith discovered them or found out that there weren't so many soft tissue injuries when they had these torpedo pants on. They were the ugliest things ever. They almost came down to your knees.
Yep.
They were full of padding. And everyone wore them at St George, or nearly everyone in the St George team in 92, 93 wore them. But Chook, mate, I went to primary school with Chook for 2 years at Carlton South Primary School. Chook actually played 5'8" back in the day.
So he's another player, mate. Started his career in the halves and was shunted to the wing, where his talents just weren't appreciated.
Why? Because he couldn't play 5'8". Look, no, he was all right. Whoa. Chook was all right.
I'm serious.
Could kick a goal. He had a very unique goal kicking style about him. He was one of those blokes. I guess he's a little bit like like Mark Riddell was a cult hero for a while when everyone would do this when he was about to kick and Chook Heron. Yep, good work, Chook. I don't know where he's at now. I think he ended up last spotted out somewhere in Newcastle working for the mines, I believe.
Okay. Two other.
I just totally made that up, but it could be true.
It sounded good. Two other names. Yep. Jason Donnelly, who played in the wing there for a few years, and
Kiwi, wasn't he? Jason Donnelly.
Nick Zisty. Remember Nick Zisty?
Yep. Yeah, Nick Zisty. We won't mention him. No. Let's move on.
Him? All right, let's go to the centres. Let's go to the centres. There's one standout choice because he was the rock that the backs were built on there at the Dragons for those years, and that was Marcus Coyne.
Yes.
Still the scorer of the greatest rugby league try I have ever seen, and it wasn't even for the Dragons.
I was there. It was a heartbreaker for Queensland in, I don't know what year it was. It was probably mid-90s.
94, game one. SFF.
94, yep. Heartbreaker, but yeah, Mark Coyne. Mark Coyne likes to go to Singapore, doesn't he? Does he like to go to Asian
countries? He liked his right foot step, I believe.
He doesn't eat bats, does he?
No, I hope not.
Anyway, no, could play. Mark's brother Peter, I mentioned earlier on, played for a couple of years at the Dragons as well. Mark Coyne. They built a team around him. He was a captain, and I mean, he had a few different outside back centres as a centering partnership. I think Graham Bradley was one of them.
He was the Penguin. The other one that people forget about is Michael Beattie, who played a lot of football.
That's
for the
it.
Dragons.
Mick Beattie. Loved to buy certain things like bulletproof vests and high caliber guns. Beg your pardon?
Was he a cop?
No, he wasn't. He was arrested for buying bulletproof vests and other paraphernalia. He'll go into one of our other teams that we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks. Yeah, Mick Beattie.
190 odd games at centre, not bad. Brian Johnson comes into consideration again.
Yep. But
I have a player here that people don't really remember played for St George. He was much better known at Manly, and that's Mick O'Connor. They signed him from rugby.
2 years?
And he got a couple of years. I think he played 3 or 4 years at the Dragons. Let me just have a look.
Okay.
He played 4 years at the Dragons. And he was part of that team.
When did Finchy stop playing, mate? Robert Finch.
Robert Finch, I'm just looking it up. His last year was 1980. He was a legend, by the way, Robert Finch. I'm a big fan.
Robert Stone as well?
No.
Probably around the same time, 80, 81.
Can't see him on the list in the centres.
Okay.
And he played a different position, didn't he?
I think he's a 5'8", actually.
The other name that needs to get mentioned,
yes,
in this group of players is Steve Rogers. Now he was considered a shark and all the rest of it, but then he made the ultimate betrayal and he went to St George. Injuries curtailed him a little bit, but he played for St George. I don't remember him really playing at all, but it's still a weird one when I look it up. It's that he played a game in the Red V. It's really strange. He played a grand total of 28 games for the Dragons in 83 and 84, and then he retired and they made the grand final the next year, poor fella.
Which, interestingly enough, is probably more games than Kieran Foran's played in the last 4 seasons.
Maybe.
Right?
Just a note on Rogers, he ended up playing one more year, with Cronulla in 85, so he left.
That's right, he went back.
He went back for that year. I can't have him in there because I didn't see enough of him, but he would be in the conversation because people do consider him in that. In honestly, the conversation around the Meningas and those kind of players, they think he was that good. So that's the centres for the St George Dragons. 5'8" is an interesting one because is there just one candidate here? Do you think it's Mundine and then nobody else?
Well, in lieu of being able to pick Tony Trudgett, I'd probably say
Why can't you pick Tony Trudgett?
Well, didn't he finish in 82?
83 was his last year at the Dragons. But he played a whole bunch of games. He would have been a hero of yours, wouldn't he? Tony Trudgett?
He's a walk-up start. Look, he was a cult hero. He wasn't a hero of mine, but Chock's probably when did he debut? 95?
93, I
4?
think, Mundine. 93. Played one game in 93, then his first main year was in 94.
Okay. Yeah, look, he's the man, so to speak, without trying to coin a phrase or steal a pun. He's the 5'8" of that era. I think. There was a few others that had a crack, like Peter Coyne and stuff like that.
Tony Smith.
Look,
Phil Blake
Tony
played
Smith,
there.
that's right. Phil Blake. Phil Blake was a very good player. But little brother Tony, he played there, but couldn't attack to save his life. Very good defender.
What do you remember about Steve Robinson? I don't recall him.
I remember his brother Jeff, who played for Canterbury. No, he did. Jeff did play for Canterbury. It wasn't his brother. I don't remember Steve Robinson. I'm sorry.
He played quite a few games there for the Dragons in the halves in that late 80s period. So Mundine gets 5'8" halfback, mate. I think it's one standout selection, unless you decide that Steve Morris played enough games at halfback, because he played 2 years at halfback when he was at the Dragons in our era.
Okay, well, when you were about to say there's a standout, and I mean, it's funny, because nobody really stands out for me.
Okay.
If you say Noel Goldthorpe, I'm going to walk out that door.
Get up,
that door there.
Start walking. He is the guy.
Fair income.
It's if he's not the number one option for the Dragons between 82 and 98.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was that clown that eye gouged someone? What was his name? He got many weeks for eye gouging someone. He played for half 5'8". I'd sooner have him over the Goldthorpe. Sorry, Noel.
You're being harsh on Goldthorpe as far as I'm concerned, because he got the Dragons to 3 grand finals, didn't he?
Look, I can be harsh because back in those days I was probably back in those days I was a little bit closer to the Dragons and I was a little bit more of a fan, and they just didn't have enough to get the job done. So,
couple other names. Sorry, Steve Linnane.
Steve Linnane.
What can you tell me about Steve Linnane?
Well, he liked to eye gouge.
That was him, was it? That was the guy who did it.
That's Linnane, yeah. I think he did. I think he got 12 weeks or something. He got might have been more. Could have been more. It was longer than 12 weeks, I'd suggest. I'm sure that you're probably looking it up
987,
right now.
it was.
Yeah, 87. How many weeks did he get?
It just says long suspension, but he only played 12 games that year. So
he was actually a really talented player, mate.
Well, his rookie year, he scored 17 tries in 26 games in 85. That was the year they made the GF.
Real fast, kind of like zippy, like Phil Blake, that kind of player.
Okay.
That live wire halfback. But yeah, unfortunately, his career will be forever blemished with an eye gouging incident. Look, I'm happy to go with Noel. If Noel's your man, I'm happy to go.
Unless you want to go with Ivan Henjak.
No, I'd pass on Ivan.
A lot of teams ended up doing that, actually.
Yeah, Brisbane were one, and the Raiders were another, and Noel Goldthorpe. Look, he was pretty sturdy. Like when I say sturdy, he was only about 5'1", but he was solid. Like as far as he would get the job done for you, he just didn't have that next gear. You know what I mean?
My favourite memory of Goldthorpe's actually the Super League Tri-Nations decider in about the 199th minute. when he kicked that field goal for New South Wales. That's my favourite memory of the Goldthorpester. Lock forward, buddy. I think we're going to be in agreement this time.
Oh, well, you're going to say Brad Mackay.
I'm going to say Brad Mackay.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
I agree.
In my mind,
Yep.
he's there. There are
Great
two
player.
other players that I think come to mind. One is Jeff Hardy, who was a really loyal servant for both Illawarra
Did you
and
say
St. George.
surgeon?
Surgeon.
Did you say
Sergeant.
surgeon?
Sergeant.
Surgeon. Jeff Hardy, the surgeon.
The surgeon. Again, Rod Reddy played there, but I don't remember him enough to have him in the conversation. Graham Wynn, who was a pretty handy footballer. And Wayne Bartram, who was another big name signing from the Gold Coast Seagulls. I mean, you Dragons, you went after those Seagulls.
Yeah. Geez, we were winners. They proved to be great players as well. Did Kevin Campion never play for Saints?
He did play for Saints.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Geez, I liked Kevin. I liked Kevin Campion. Look, I don't remember him much in a Saints jersey, but I just remember how tough he was. He was a tough bugger.
The only other lock forward that comes to mind for me is Peter Gill, who I think went the other way in that trade with the Gold Coast Seagulls.
Yeah, I know the name, but I don't remember much about him. To be fair, so Brad Mackay's the standout, mate. What do we got next?
We've got second rowers. Now there is a lot of good second rowers that have played for the St George Dragons, mate.
Yep.
One is going to be controversial that I selected. The other, I think, is a slam dunk. And as a result of picking the controversial one, I've pushed the other probably logical second rower into the front row. Can you guess who I'm talking about?
Scott Goulet.
Scott Goulet is the locked in. Like, he's a certainty. I think he's definitely in the second row.
Yeah.
Who will I move to the front row then?
Wow.
He did play front row quite a bit for the Dragons, but he played a lot of back row as well.
Oh, Luke Bailey?
No.
Who?
He's finished his career in Canberra, ended up at the Roosters.
Canberra and the Roosters. No, mate. No. Go on.
No, finish your thought.
No, I just thought of Wayman.
No, David Barnhill.
Oh, Davey Barnhill.
Great footballer.
David's dad was the
CRL
boss of
wasn't
Country Rugby League.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. And I believe his name was David too.
He is. Graham Wynn's in that conversation. Wally Fulton-Smith.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Back in the day, the double-barreled surname was quite, an anomaly.
It was.
My children both have double-barreled surnames now.
And a young bloke called Lance Thompson also made his debut and was in that team that went to the grand final in 96.
Yep.
I can't get him in my team.
He's not in your team?
He's not in my team. So I've moved Barnhill to front row to accommodate this other player who only made a grand total of 24 starts in the second row.
Right. I don't know.
The Raging Bull. Gordon Tallis.
Oh, yeah. See, I can't pick Tallis there. I know that he was good, but he went and sat a year out. So I'm sorry, but I just, and as much as, the few times I've met Gordon, he's been really nice. And what a player, and what a dude to not run into in a dark alley. But no, I can't. He for me, he was best known at the Broncos. So
Still played
I've got to leave him out. But
4 seasons with St George. And he actually had a 60% winning record at Saints, which is pretty handy. I've got to have him in my team. I remember him really strongly from that era. He was a tear away. So that pushes Dave Barnhill into the front row, mate. Who have I got him alongside?
Well, you've probably got him alongside Jason Riles.
But see, you're going with St George Illawarra. This is St George.
Well, unless you've got him next to Captain Courageous, the local detective at Kingsgrove Police.
Yes, I do. I do.
So you thought I forgot him, didn't you?
Yeah, well, possibly. Tell people who you're talking about.
Craig Young?
Yep.
Yeah, the captain. What was his nickname? I forget his nickname. What's his nickname? Craig Young. It's gone. What's his nickname? Go on, you've got it there.
I'm looking. Can't see anything.
It's a first name, but it's not Craig. Anyway.
We're really got people with history by not remembering that. Robert Stone, who you remember talking about, also played 104 games. A couple other names. Paul Osborne, before he was famous, played a bunch of years at Saints. Tony Priddle, Pat Jarvis. But the guy that was probably a little bit harsh to miss out to moving Barnhill into the front row was Jason Stevens, who I know he ended up playing at Cronulla, but that, I think it's the 93 grand final, is pretty much remembered as if Jason Stevens doesn't get hurt, do the Dragons win that grand final?
Broken hand. Yep. Yeah, well, that's why it gets interesting here when I name my my glorious combined team of both St George and Illawarra all the way through to 2019, from 82 to 2019. So, yeah, okay. There's a few notable exceptions there. I mean, but there's also a few that I'd forgotten about. So, it should be interesting here to combine
Couple more,
them.
Troy Stone, Luke Felch.
The Felsher, yes.
Yep, and there's one more that for some reason I can't see. Tony Hearn played for you. Yeah, played 12 games at the front row.
Yeah,
guy
he's
who would always,
so we kind of forget him.
He'd back into the defensive line. I'd love that option. And of course Corey Pearson. So that's the Dragons team. I'll go through it. Oh, sorry, we haven't done hooker. We haven't done hooker. Oh, how can we not have done hooker?
Well, there's only one.
Wayne Snoopy Collins. No, it's Nathan Brown.
Yeah,
Nathan Brown is the.
No, what?
Oh no!
I had Chris Guyder. No, I didn't.
Isn't that a growth that comes out of your neck or something?
Nathan Brown.
That's a goiter. But Nathan Brown, yeah, he is the number one selection there. Now, interestingly enough, people sometimes think of Steve Edge, but that was before the 82 period. When he was successful at Saints. That's pretty much an obvious selection is Nathan Brown. Wayne Collins was, though, the hooker for those 92 and 93 grand finals. Very, very handy player. So that gives us a Dragons team of Potter, Walford, Coyne, O'Connor, Slippery Morris, Mundine, Goldthorpe, Young, Brown, Barnhill, Tallis, Goulet, and Brad Mackay.
It's a fair team.
It's a fair rugby league team. And after the break, everyone, we will come back and we'll get to Cocksmith's super team that he has decided to get the supercharged sauce out, put the teams together, add in another 20 years of history, completely stuff up every list that I'd written down, and we'll come up with our best team from the combined of everything. Dragons, Steelers, plus St George Illawarra Dragons, up from 82 to 19 here on Not the Footy Show.
Not the Footy Show.
What was his nickname? Look it up.
I'll look it up. Hang on.
Craig Young. It's something like
the Sergeant or Craig, wasn't it? The Sergeant? Or
No. It's like something like Barney or something like. He had a one name nickname.
Albert.
That's him.
As in Fat Albert.
Maybe. You tell him.
No.
He's look really angry, Craig Young.
On a party that had been 31 years in the making. The streets were awash with red and white as the St George faithful shared their joy in a tidal wave of celebration.
The Breakfast of Champions.
Hangover food. Celebrating the Dragons. Come on! Number one!
Ironically, it was chicken schnitzel. They're a little hoarse.
First of many to come on the cup.
But today, one thing was still loud and clear. In those red and white hearts, there was never any doubt.
We are the Premiers! Yeah!
With every try, 31 years of disappointment began washing away at Cogra.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1!
This is better than childbirth!
I can't believe it. 30 years waiting.
In the East, the evolution of emotions began. Pain.
The tears are flowing.
Pride.
And to us, they're still champs anyway.
And then anger.
Referee, he was a disgrace. I mean, really, he should be sacked, that bloke.
There was no sympathy here.
Take on that, the Roosters!
Roosters are the Chokers! Far out!
60,000 faithful fans rushing home for the crowning of Rugby League royalty. King Benny of Cogra.
It's very humbling. That it means, it reminds you what rugby league means to them and what their club colours and their club means to them.
Are you the best coach in the world?
That's not my call.
Oh, don't be modest.
I'm just part of the team here.
A man of few words, but could this be a smile on the face of the Steely super coach? Ros Kelly, 9 News.
Okay, it's not the Footy Show, episode 205. We are doing the best of the Illawarra Steelers, which we've done, the St George Dragons, which we've done. It's time for Cocksmith's favourite part of the show, which is where he puts it all in the pot and spits out a team of 19, he reckons. St George Illawarra Dragons, combining from 82 all the way to effectively this season, 2020. Now, we started with fullback and we went forwards. Do you want to do the reverse?
Hey, I'm all about mixing it up, brother. If you want to go to my extended bench, or do you want to just go from 13 and then we'll name the
We'll go from
afterwards?
lock forward through to hooker, then we'll go half back to fullback.
Okay.
Just for something different, because that's the way
Why not?
we roll.
Let's mix it up.
Here and not the Footy
So
Show.
13, number 13.
Number 13. It is tough because there are some pretty handy footballers that have run out, particularly in the last 20 years, mate. I can give you some names, but I want you to tell me where you're sitting right now.
Okay, look, you can give me some names, but it's not going to change my mind on this guy. I mean, you tossed a few names before, like Wayne Bartram and Kevin Campion, and we've had
Jeff Hardy, Ian Russell, John Cross.
Yes, and also more recently, you've got Merrin,
DeBellin, Timmins,
fair player, DeBellin,
Dean Young,
Sean Timmins, Dean Young. Yes, I think he played his best games as a hooker. To be honest with you, Dean Young, I liked him in there. But anyway, look, I've gone with Brad Mackay.
Yep.
I don't think anyone can keep up with Brad Mackay in those circles. I mean, he's a bloke that played both for Australia and for New South Wales in that position, and did a pretty good job of it, and never gave up. And he's my 13 of since 1982.
The biggest rap I give on Brad Mackay is that as a New South Wales fan, in those times when Brad Clyde was injured, they would plug in Brad Mackay, and at Origin level, we wouldn't miss a trick. He was really...
Yeah, he could still ball play.
He was the ultimate sort of Mr. Fix-It for a guy that was as great as Clyde. He'd come in and you'd end up with a pretty good option. And that's what stands out for me is Mackay is just his ability just to be there everywhere. And for the Dragons, he obviously played a whole bunch of big games for him. So I'm with you. He is the lock forward for the St George Illawarra Dragons from 82 to 95.
It seems to me that he probably played better with New South Wales than he did with St George. I say that with a little grin because people remember those Origin games more than they remember round 13 of 94 or whatever. But or 2004, whenever he last played, I don't know. But he was a great player. He was at every level, he was a great player and a damn good fireman too. They tell me.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go.
Apparently.
Ended up playing 17 Origins for New South Wales and 12 Test matches for Australia. He's a very worthy selection in the number 13. Let's go to the second row, buddy.
Okay. Well, look, I've got a couple here that we've spoken about before, and they're going to be a little bit controversial because I know that we've both kind of decided on players that have spent the best years of their game. So they should have played their best games with St George. And one did, the other one didn't. But I just like him. So, but there's been lots of players. If we go through, like you just said before, you mentioned John Cross, Neil Piccinelli. There's been a bunch of fellas that have played. Bob Lindner, but never did play his best games. But I'm going to break the rule. I've named Craig Fitzgibbon in my 12 because he's a goal-kicking back rower, and I just like the way he played. And let's be honest, his lineage here with his dad, Alan, being the coach of, I think Alan might have played with Illawarra as well. Craig Fitzgibbon's my number 12. But
35 games
you can talk me out of it,
for those teams. So he played enough games to be in that conversation. I think he played his best footy by far for East, and I think there are other players that are currently in that conversation for the Dragons, St George Illawarra Dragons, that are just they've given more and they've probably been more successful when they were at Saints. I've got to have Scott Goulay in there. I think he is in that he was a great footballer, and he was actually a threat. But the Dragons,
You're so big.
yeah,
You're so big.
he was their main threat, I thought, in their team to create
On that left edge and the
opportunities.
big arm. And
So he's in the side. The other options from the more recent days is the Ben Crays of the world, the Bo Scotts, Lance Thompson. We talked about him before.
Well, look, I'll admit I've got Lance in number 11.
Yeah, okay.
So I've got Lance and Craig Fitzgibbon for two pretty different reasons. But I honestly think that out of St George and Illawarra combined in St George Illawarra, Lance and Craig Fitzgibbon are my standouts. Don't get me wrong, we'll get to Scott Goulet, and there's a few others as well. You mentioned Tony Priddle before, who played both second row and front row.
Yep.
I don't have him on my extended bench, but I do have his name crossed out here. He was in the top 20. But yeah, I believe Thompson, just given his many years of loyal service, given that he copped a slap in the face from Nathan Brown, it surely gets him in the team. I mean, there's others in that.
It was Baz who got. No, Baz got slapped. Thompson was in the shot though.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because Lance was quoted as saying, if he had have hit me in the face, I would have dropped him on the sideline, which would have been interesting.
Yeah, just screams respect, doesn't it?
But okay, look, so we're going to have to agree to disagree on that, mate.
So you've gone with Thompson
and Fitzgibbon in the back row.
I've gone with the same one I had for the Dragons, which is Goulet and Tallis.
Okay. Are you going to stick with Tallis?
I'm going to stick with Tallis.
I'm going to stick strong.
I'm picking.
Okay.
Yeah, as I think where Tallis elevates is more that the other guys were all really, really good, but Tallis was in that great category even then, I thought.
Sure. Okay.
And obviously there's no room for a guy called Neil Pinchinelli who was pretty handy as well. We go to the front row. There is a lot of... I'm just going to read this list of front rowers that deserve consideration for this position. Darren Fritz, Jason Stevens, Craig Young, Tony Priddle, Luke Bailey, Jason Riles, James Graham, Matt Pryor, Michael Wayman, Paul Vaughan, and David Barnhill, who I'm pushing... Don't
forget Barney.
I'm pushing back up into that slot. Now, I didn't mention poor old Tyson Frizzell even in the second row conversation, but now he's signed with Newcastle. No one wants to talk about him.
He's not a Dragon anymore, mate.
Didn't I pick that little that press release from the Knights as being not happy, didn't I? Yes. Anyway, conversation for another day. Right now, I've got Barnhill pushing up into the front row. I still think he's that good.
Wow. You are a diehard Barnhill fan.
Oh, Barney. I love Barney. But there are so many other great options that have come through, and this is what we talked about earlier in regards to the Illawarra juniors who ended up being Dragons. Riles and Bailey were both Illawarra kids.
Yep.
They could have been a decent group to build around as the Steelers. Are they the two standouts in your opinion? Are they the two standouts out of that sort of more recent crop?
Yeah. Look, I've got. I'll tell you who I've chosen.
Yep.
I like firepower in the front row. I'm a big fan of intimidators. So I've got Albert, Craig Young, and Jason Riles in the front row.
Yep.
And look, I may as well say it. I've got Nathan Brown as hooker.
Yep.
Nathan Brown's a standout hooker in those 20 odd years, and even at the I don't think that there's been anyone that's come along. You've had Nathan Friend that played very well, but not for a lot of years. You had Soward who played at hooker.
Nathan Feen, you mean?
Sorry, Nathan Feen, not Nathan Friend.
Nathan Friend did well.
Yes. Nathan Feen, who came in and played. I think he played in the grand final, didn't he? Dean Young, who's another great hooker, back rower.
Mark Riddell.
But Mark Riddell, yeah. I mean, how could you forget Piggy?
And then Cam McInnes more recently.
But I've gone with Nathan Brown,
yep.
And obviously propped up with Craig Young and Jason Riles. Now I've done that because, and I'll tell you why later when we get to the bench, because I think I've picked a team that my first 17 and a couple of shadow players will complement who I've got in the starting side. But yeah, that's in my mind. You know, and Craig Young just sneaks in, remember, because I think he might have debuted in about 75.
Yeah, he would definitely. He was there for the grand final '85, and that's still 4 years in our era. So
that's right. So he slides in, but I think his best football might have been a little earlier. But he was consistent. He played good football. You know, for a bloke that had a full-time job as a bloody detective in the St George area with the police force. Very, very good player. So that's who I've gone with, mate. So that would, you know, just to reiterate on that, we disagree on the back row, and we may even disagree on the front row for the moment.
Only one.
I'll tell you who my starting forward pack are from the lock: Brad Mackay, Craig Fitzgibbon, Lance Thompson, Jason Riles at the front row, Craig Young the other prop, and Nathan Brown as a hooker.
Yeah, it's very good. Mine's slightly different. I've basically stuck with Young, Brown, and Barnhill to go with Goulet, Tallis, and then Mackay. So it is pretty much the Dragons. There's no room for a stealer in my an original stealer in my pack.
Brad Mackay.
Well, he only played a few games. I remember him. I remember him more as a Dragon. But yeah, fair point. So I've got Goulet and Tallis, Mackay, Barnhill, Brown, and Young. So, and I've got Riles on my bench, just to be clear. I thought he'd give more impact.
Oh, you want to go and name benches?
We can.
Now,
we'll get to the bench.
You're the one that let the cat out of the bag.
Let's go to halfback. This is interesting because I know you want to pick Ben Hunt. I understand that. I know you want to pick Ben Hornby. I understand that too. You want to pick Matt Head. I get it. You definitely don't want to pick Noel Goldthorpe. But John Simon is my pick at halfback in the greatest combined team.
John Simon's my pick too.
Yeah.
I remember him as an Illawarra player, you know, and he was a very, very good halfback. And I think he was just at a time, you know, when Alan Langer and Ricky Stewart were doing the business, John Simon just couldn't get into rep teams. I mean, he did slide into one Origin rep team, but I do remember him playing in country, I think New South Wales country. John Simon was a very, very good football player, and just unlucky that he was surrounded by other very good football players in the same position as him. So yeah, I've got John Simon in the 7, mate.
Yep, so do I.
And look, I may as well tell you, I've got Barrett in the 6. So Barrett and Simon are my 6 and 7.
I've gone no Barrett.
Oh. Oh no. What have you done? I reckon you might have done the Pom.
No. The other options
You didn't go the
at
Pom.
5'8", Gareth Widdop, Benji Marshall, Sweet and Soured, who kicked his way to a premiership, and good luck to him. That's the role that he got asked to play, and he helped them get there. But I'm going with Mundine.
You went with Chalk?
I went with Mundine. I love the idea of having John Simon and Mundine in the halves.
Really?
I just think they offer second phase, quickness, hunting around, not the classic ball players that sometimes we think of. For mine, I'm being harsh, but Baz never got his team to a big game.
Yeah, well, I think you are being a little bit harsh. I think that he was hampered by time and place quite a lot. But hey, mate, I'm a Chalk fan too. I like what Mundine did. I may not like everything that he says. Met him and worked with him quite a number of times actually, and good bloke. I mean, and look, everyone says that. That's a common theme that you know people hate him when they see what he says or hear what he says and see what he's doing on TV. But really good bloke in person. Really, you know, he actually came to our engagement party. Believe it or not.
There you go.
Yeah. No, good fella, Chalk. But I just have to go for mine with Barrett and John Simon. But I'm happy either way on that one. I think they John Simon would work with either.
To be fair to Barrett, I did miss the fact that he did play halfback in that 99 grand final. But then again, I always thought he was the accessory in that little period. He was more of the running player and rather than the dominant playmaker.
Yeah.
It was Mundine's team. But yeah, I'm being harsh on him, but I just think Mundine was more impactful. That's just how I view it. Going into the centres, mate, this is where some very good players will not even... They'll barely get a mention.
This is hard. This is hard, mate, because with all the aforementioned ones we had before, with Rodwell and Mary and...
Coyne.
Coyne.
Rogers, O'Connor.
Oh, yeah.
Brunker.
There's two that have stuck out for me. And one we had in the St George side, which was Mark Coyne.
Yep.
So I went with Mark Coyne, and I went with the horny human, Mark Gasnier.
Yep.
Because Gaz on his day could do anything. He was a very, very good footballer. Unfortunately, he went to France, and he never was quite the same when he came back. He had moments where you thought, Gaz is back, and then it just didn't figure. I don't know.
That edge, I think. It just wasn't there when he came back.
Yeah. But I've gone with Gaz and Mark Coyne.
Which means
who did you go with?
Which means there's no room for Matt Cooper.
Well, there
Josh
is.
Morris.
There's room for Matt Cooper, and I've got him in the number 2 jersey because he played a lot of wing.
You've moved him onto the wing.
Well, he played a lot of wing. If you remember correctly, he played a lot of wing. And I think he was probably a better centre than he was a wing, but I can't get him pushing Mark Coyne or Gaz out.
Okay. I don't have Cooper in my team.
Yeah.
I haven't got Coyne in my team.
Wow.
I've got Mary McGregor and Gasnier. That's my combo.
Yeah, look, that's definitely a reasonable argument or a reasonable choice, mate. I guess it's just you've gone for 2 very big centres.
I've gone for centres that can set their wingers up. That's a big thing that I've gone for, especially given that I've got more running 5/8 and halves. I'm thinking about the sort of makeup of my team and how it plays. I mean, when we get to the wingers, obviously in a sec, but I'm gonna have try scorers on the end of both sides. So that's what I want in the way that my team sort of gets set up. We've been harsh on Josh Morris to a degree, but he ended up playing a lot of football at the Bulldogs.
I do have him as a notable exclusion. I have him as definitely someone to talk nicely about. He did both Josh and Brett both played very, very good football with St George. But they just don't get into my all-star team from 82 onwards, unfortunately.
Yep.
And look, a little bit like you, the wingers that I went with. So let's clear it up. You've gone with Gaz and Mary.
Gaz and Mary.
And I've gone with Mark Coyne and Gaz.
Yep.
And then on one wing, I've got Matt Cooper.
You've gone Cooper to the wing. Wow.
Yep.
Yep.
And on the other wing, I've got Wishart.
So that means, everybody, that Cocksmith has thrown out of the bathwater Alan McIndoe, Nathan Blacklock, Ian Heron, Slippery Morris, Jamie Ainscough, the cough drop, Brett Morris, Jason Nightingale, and Amos Roberts. They're all gone.
Yeah, they're gone, mate. They can't knock off Matt Cooper or Wishart. I mean, seriously, I wish I could have 3 centres and I'd have Matt Cooper in there as well. But I do think that Coyne and Gaz were slightly better, and because Coyne and Gaz didn't spend any time on the wing, I think Gaz might have started a couple of games on the wing very, very early on.
According to this.
Yep. How many games did Matt Cooper play on the wing, mate?
20-something, 21.
Yeah.
Interesting that you mentioned that. Josh Morris played more games on the wing for the Dragons than he did centres.
Okay. Yeah, right. Fair enough. Because Brett played a lot of fullback, didn't he?
Yes. Brett ended up playing 141 games on the wing, but he also played, let me just tell you, give me 2 seconds, people. He also played 49, not just for the Dragons, but he played a lot of games at the fullback.
Yeah. Yeah, so look, we're agreeing to disagree on one of those as well.
Well, see, I find it hard to leave out Brett Morris, more so than I do leaving out Matt Cooper. But my other winger, so I've got Wishart with you. I just think you've got to respect what he did at rep level as well. And he was one of the best players for a team that only had one good year. I've got Blacklock on the other wing.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason I've got Blacklock is
great player.
what I was talking about before in regards to natural finisher on outside of either Gasnier or McGregor. That's why I've gone with Blacklock. It was hard to leave out a lot of really good players. I mean, Nightingale had an amazing career for the Dragons. Morris, as I said, Slippery Morris, and even Jamie Anscough had a pretty good little run there for the Dragons, all things considered, except to when he coat-hangered poor Craig Smith. But that is, I couldn't move Cooper. I didn't think about it, to be fair, but I still would go with Blacklock and Wishart. So I'd go Wishart, Gasnier, McGregor, Blacklock. You've gone Cooper, Coyne, Gasnier, and Wishart, which leads us to the last position that's sitting there, mate.
Before we get to our bench,
true.
yeah, look, mate, I'm not pulling any surprises here. I've gone with Mick Potter.
You have?
I went with Mick Potter.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Mick Potter. Well, if you can name a better one, and then I'll pick him. But I think Mick Potter in his day, given that he didn't play in the land of the Giants like they are now, I still think he did a good enough job to get into my team of the last 40 years, 39 years.
Now, I'm not picking Josh Dugan, kids, so be okay with that. I can't pick Toot Toot Hornby. I can't pick Amos Roberts. I can't pick Luke Patton.
Who are you picking?
It's Darius Boyd. He is the reason you won the premiership in 2010. As far as I'm concerned, he added that level of class that you didn't have, and he is the best fullback I've seen play for the St George and or Illawarra Dragons since '82 by a fair distance. And I liked Mick Potter, but Darius Boyd just made that team tick.
Okay, let's move on to our bench.
Love it.
I'm not going to justify anything. I'm just going to tell you who my bench players are. 14, 15, 16, and 17, and then I've got a couple of shadow players. 14, I've gone Sean Timmins.
Yep.
He can cover anywhere. He can play in the halves. He can play in the back row. He can play centre. He can play winger if you need him to. The next three are forwards, and I've gone with Craig Smith.
Yep.
Scott Goulet.
Yep.
And Jay Stevens.
Yeah, it's handy.
Now, I mean, obviously the reason why I went with those guys, firepower, but Goulet brings something extra. Lance and Craig Fitzgibbon are pretty much 80-minute players.
Yeah,
but
see what you're doing there.
But you can see with Smith and Stevens. Yeah. Anyway, I wasn't going to justify it, but that's what I did. And then I've got a couple of noteworthy players, but let's hear your bench first, mate.
Okay, my bench is Jason Riles, Luke Bailey, Lance Thompson, Sean Timmins.
Good bench.
So
really good bench.
I don't have a hooker who can directly cover, but I'm sure I could manufacture
Timmins.
one out of a Brad Mackay or a Mundine if he had to.
Well, what I think you would do, mate, depending on if anyone got injured, I think you could go Timmins to 6 and John Simon to hooker.
Yeah.
But look, there's a few players that I wanted to mention. We've already mentioned their names, but I mean, as my two shadow players, I've got Rod Reddy, and I've got Ryan Girdler.
Wow, you love Girds. Is it a man crush situation? What's the deal?
No, it's not a man crush. I just loved him as a player, mate. He's probably, in my opinion, one of the best centres that I've seen running around. And the only reason he gets into this particular team is because he did play with Illawarra at one stage. So he's kind of scraping in because, let's be honest, like you say, he only played 14 games, I think it was. Rod Reddy was just a scary hard man. You know, maybe not enough to scare Robbie Farah, but back in his day, he was one of those firebrand back rowers that knew how to scare people. The other names that I've got three other names just written for noteworthiness. I've got Brett Rodwell, great centre, and I've got Spaghetti and Carbonara, the Italian twins. Schiffoliti, really, really good hooker, mate. I actually contemplated long and hard about him and Nathan Brown. He didn't reach the heights of Nathan Brown, but Jizzy was a consistent player. And Piccinelli was just a workhorse back rower. So that's my extended bench.
That's a pretty good side, mate.
If you had to pick two shadow players, though, who would you go with?
Well, I've been harsh on Trent Barrett to leave him out at this stage, but I'll probably do it again. Brett Morris, because he can play every position in that back line. And I got to pick Jeff Hardy. He was the utility man before there were utility men.
Yeah, I agree.
He can play
Jeff
hooker,
Hardy
he can play halfback, he can play second row, centre, 5/8, front row if you needed.
I think you're reaching a little bit with halfback, but I do agree that he could probably play 5/8.
Hang on. Now you say that. Let me just do a little bit of research while you just fill for us, mate.
You've already done the research, mate. Okay, we know what you use to research. Rugby League project. Go on. How many games did he play at halfback?
Jeff Hardy. Let me bring it up. I didn't play any at halfback. It's pure. He played 38 games at centre, 22 at 5/8, 3 in the front row, 13 in hooker, 36 in the second row, 49 at lock. But he played 85 games off the bench. So I reckon at least at one stage he would have played halfback.
Did he have a brother that played there?
No, I don't think
he
so.
Didn't, did he? I'm thinking of Paul Stevens, Jason's brother, aren't I? That's who I'm thinking of. He was a back rower. Yeah, Paul Stevens. Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, there it is, mate.
Mate, we've probably could tighten it up, I'll be honest with you, everybody, and we've got through this first one as a bit of a test case. But hopefully you enjoyed this little walk down memory lane. We're not going to go into, the season by season of all the clubs. That's something for another time, I'm sure. But hopefully you enjoy where we got to. So we gave you an Illawarra Steelers team, a St George Dragons team, and a St George Illawarra plus Steelers and Dragons combined team from 82 onwards.
Yeah.
The only players, and this is just interesting for people to note, that we were unanimous with. Okay? Rod Wishart, Mark Gasnier, John Simon, Craig Young, Nathan Brown, and Brad Mackay. In terms of our starting teams, that's our only... Yeah. So we had 6 players that we thought...
Yeah. We both had Timmins on the bench. So.
And Riles and Thompson. And Goulet was the other one.
Yeah, so I had those 3 as well, but I had them switched around. But you're right, there was only 5 or 6 in the starting team from the combined team.
So out of that, people, if you want to give us what your team would be, we'd love to hear it, and we will reference it on future podcasts. So you can get us, I think the best place to do it is probably Facebook, facebook.com/NRL podcast. Just post it on the episode that we post. I'll probably try and do a graphic up for you for our 2 teams. So you can have a look there. Who should we do next is the big question.
Titans. No, let's not do the Titans.
The Giants, why don't we... Seagulls, Chargers, Titans.
Yeah, Chargers. Why don't we do, I don't know, why don't we do, I was going to say West, but let's not do, if we do West, then we've got to go through the same thing.
So something like Norths, I think, is an option.
You want to go North?
Norths, I think, could be an option. I mean, I'm local. We could do it at North Sydney Oval. No, we can't. You can't leave the house.
No, COVID-19.
But what's the plan? I think we go back. The reason we did these teams now is that they've got a bit of history that sort of got cut off when the competition came in the NRL. So what we're looking at is more teams that have disappeared first before we get into the super teams of Canberra and Brisbane and the like.
So if we do Norths, can we possibly do like we just did with Saints? Can we do a Norths and Northern Eagles?
Well, would the Northern Eagles team go into... This is a good question. Would that team go into the Manly conversation?
Well, maybe they do, and then we pick a best of those, from there.
Which is the saddest thing, because that's what should have happened at Norths. Well, Northern Eagles in... what was it? What was their first year? 2000 was their first year.
2000, yeah.
Everyone forgets that Manly absolutely rorted North Sydney in that little arrangement. Actually, interesting you say that, because you sent me a message this week that we will not get into now because we don't want to waste gold for future episodes.
Was it? What was it alluding to?
You asked me which 4 teams, if you had to get rid of 4 teams...
Oh, yeah.
Would you?
We'll talk about this too.
Out of the NRL when the seasons come back, if they come back.
I think we talk about that in a couple of weeks.
I think so.
I've got a feling, given what I've watched on TV this week, and we should have been playing round 3 this weekend of the 2020 comp, but it's obviously been suspended for the moment. I've got a feeling that we're going to be off for 6 to 10 weeks. 6 to 10 weeks is what we're going to be off for. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it comes back sooner. But we're going to have quite a few of these podcasts. And I reckon in a couple of weeks, mate, we talk about the 4 teams who should go if they do cull 4 teams.
It's interesting you say that because if we come back in that time frame, no team's going anywhere. Only chance,
then they get to stay.
Only chance of any teams getting kicked out is if we don't come back this year. That's the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But let's play hypotheticals in a couple of weeks. And if there's anyone out there listening who wants to give us their input, don't just name a team though. Don't just name a team, right? Don't just say Cronulla. You got to say Cronulla and why.
Yep.
All right. You got to say why.
And you
can't
can
just say
say
the Broncos.
though Cronulla because they're the Sharks. That's fine. That's a good reason.
Yeah, but let's try and keep the conversation cerebral and give us some reasons. You can't just say the Broncos because they beat Saints in 2 grand finals.
If this podcast is anything, it is cerebral. That's
absolutely spell it. Hey, there'll be 2 clubs. There'll be 2 or 3 clubs. Yes, it's got a silent Z at the start. There's a few clubs that will not go. So I mean, don't even try and pick the Broncos. Melbourne probably won't go. They're too rich.
Yeah, I think Newtown are safe.
Newtown are very safe, as are Drummoyne.
Glebe, the Dirty Reds.
Yeah. So, but honestly, out of the 16 teams that are playing, not at the moment, but that started this season, 4 clubs. Yeah. If 4 had to go, who are they?
Give us some fodder to go into next time we actually talk more recent rugby league. Look, that's been episode 205.
I was going to say, how's the conversation going on the MCO Cup chat group at the moment?
No idea. No,
not much happening.
I'm too busy.
Are they listening?
Too busy
Are the
listening
boys
to
still
rain
listening?
Fall on the roof. Anyway, that's been episode 205. I've been Warrick Nicolson. That's been Robb Cox. You are watching us on YouTube. You're listening to us on iTunes, Spotify, and somewhere else. You can get it all on wdnicholson.com. Please let us know if you're enjoying what we're doing because we enjoy it. But we actually had a viewer question this week.
Did we?
Can we
quickly get to it? Or I think we've got 1 minute. Go for it.
Kim Jobson on Twitter, he said basically along the lines of, why did you think the captain's challenge came in, mate? And you
that's right.
You gave an answer which was interesting.
Well, my answer was
vague.
I don't exactly know. I actually don't know exactly why it was brought in, but I get the feeling that it was brought in so that when coaches bitch, moan, and complain at the end of the year that the bunkers are ripping them off. Now the NRL can say to them, hey, you've got a captain's challenge. You chose to use it too early, or you chose to blow it, or you chose to waste time with yours. Or they can go and say, look, you picked us up on a couple of mistakes here, but you only get 1 challenge. So I think it's just possibly a little bit of window dressing. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to echo what Kim said here more in that I thought what he said was really interesting to you. You said, I got no idea why they brought it in, like the concept, not keen on the execution. He said, even if they got 2 challenges per team, they are likely to get 2 wrong based on the 2 rounds of examples that we've had. And to me, this undermines the ref's decision-making skills. Then he sort of lost everybody where he said, I like the bunker too. Its purpose is to get more decisions correct, and it is achieving that. It makes the game better. Yeah, look, it's not an unreasonable viewpoint, and it's probably true. We probably are getting more decisions right.
I think in a perfect world, we should be able to trust the bunker to get it right. The problem is that the guys on the field that may have, for want of a better term, may have stuffed something up, their mates in the bunker aren't going to hang them out to dry too hard. So until we can send a second bunker or set up a second bunker in Phil Gould's house, we're not going to get the other ones all that correct. So I think Gus needs a bunker in his house.
If you're not following Gus, you're missing out. He's
doing some good
4
stuff
a.m. most evenings.
He's bored.
Oh, he's bored out of his mind, poor Gus. Anyway, that's been episode 205. Robb Cox, Warrick Nicolson. Thanks for your company, everybody. We'd love to hear from you if you can be bothered, because we've been bothered doing this for you. You can watch it on YouTube. You're watching it on YouTube now, and it's delightful. That Arctic backdrop just keeps getting better and better and better. I think I'm getting a sunburn just from the fact that you're so bright. And mate, the future's so bright for this show, we've got to wear shades. I'll speak to you next time, Cocksmith, and we'll see you again, people, probably sometime this week for episode 206. But in the meantime, enjoy your league lovers. There you go, Dave. Look after you.
Good on you, mate. Talk to you soon. I'm going to just go put some pants back on because it's a bit cold in here now. Okay. Perhaps.
Not the Footy show.
Come on, mighty woman, gone with the Illawarra Steelers. You can't go wrong with a man so strong. Gonna give up the taste of steel. Hey, la 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 la, with the Illawarra can't go wrong with a mental strong. Gonna give 'em the taste of steel.
Pepsi.